This is the Anything But Banker to Broker podcast. We're going to be talking to some of the industry's best and brightest about the unique pathways they took before stepping into broking and how it set them up for success. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining another episode, everyone. We've got an absolute legend joining us today. We got Ryan Toppin here. Ryan, how are you getting on, mate?
Very well, mate. Looking forward to having a chat this morning. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been in the works for a long time. Obviously, we know each other fairly well. So I thought, you know what, why not get you on? Yes, elephant in the room. You're not a broker anymore, but you've got some real nuggets of wisdom for those people who weren't in the bank, transitioned into that broker space and then ultimately transitioned out and did something else too. So I appreciate you coming on, mate. I really do.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I felt like a bit of a fraud. I think once we'd had a chat, it was like, well, I may not be writing loans directly, but I'm very much still plugged into in both the mortgage and asset space. So I feel like that I have some current relevant experience and then historical as well. So the level of fraud is only minor.
Yeah, I must shout out Joseph Daoud was in the bank previously, and he was, I think, the second guest. So the rules that I'd created very early on were broken by people just being good people. So, is what it is. But mate, let's go right back. So you obviously living in Melbourne now. Am I right in thinking there was a bit of a Sydney life in there? Is that right?
So started in Perth, moved to Sydney for 5 years in 2017, moved to Melbourne 2022, and then out to Geelong about 6 months ago.
Beautiful. We'll go to Perth because that's where I wanted to touch on. So I've spent a fair bit of time there. I do love it as a city. I think it's a very, very beautiful place, but it is also very far away from everything. That's its biggest hindrance, right? Like the West Coast is the best coast, but 5 hours on a plane to get anywhere is not great.
It's honestly, it's like it's another country altogether. Like you saw that during COVID, it just operated very separately to the rest of the country. I always say this about Perth, like it's great to bookend your life with. Like if you've got a young family growing up in Perth, like it's beautiful weather. The beach is arguably some of the most beautiful beaches on earth. Like the sand is like white, like it's just beautiful. It's probably safer. House prices probably a little bit lower than the East Coast. So if you're raising a young family, like very sporty, it's excellent. Through your career years, it's quite a tough place to be. Like you consider daylight savings, like Perth is currently 3 hours behind us. So if you're doing business with the East Coast, there's constantly that 3 hour time difference, which actually makes a massive, massive like impact. It's really difficult to kind of say connected properly. So you find most people just get out of Perth during their career years and then circle back around later on in life when you're ready to slow down. They've got beautiful wineries down south. You can kind of go like all the way up and down the coast. There's Monkey Mia, you can go swim with the dolphins and all that kind of stuff. So the weather is a huge, huge draw card as well. Great to like either end of your life, but just that middle section, just get out.
Yeah. I remember we did Christmas there one year, and I think it's like 7 a.m. in the morning, 25, 26 degree heat, but it was dry. It was nice, dry heat. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. But as a recruiter and trying to find people there, like, wow, it was extremely hard because, there's a few banks that operate there and have offices there, but usually they pay probably very similar to what BHP and Rio Tinto and all these other mining companies do to have somebody come on and do a 2-on-1 swing or an 8-and-6 or something, right? So I think I think if you're in the professional financial services, whatever it might be, unless you started your own business, it's always been a bit of a hard market.
And it really operates, you're right. The market is the right term for it. It really operates like a small country town, right? That, connections, which I believe is similar kind of across the board. Like it's who makes a huge difference. But in Perth, they really just prefer to deal with Perth people. Like that's just how it is, which is that country town mentality. Perth hasn't really moved too far. The West Coast is definitely a lot slower than the East Coast when it comes to almost everything: lifestyle speed, career pace, adoption, etc. Oil and gas mining is obviously a very different kettle of fish because there's so many resources in the state that the Western Australia is excellent at that, like arguably world leaders in that space. But every other industry, you're on the back foot, to be honest.
Yeah, mate, if you work in bloody Coles, like what shifts are you getting there? 12 till 5 p.m. and everything shuts down. It's crazy, man. Like
Yeah, if you want to get dinner past 5:30, you're in a bit of strife.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to order early.
Yeah, man. All right, well, let's talk about growing up there, right? So, what was home life like? What did your mum and dad do? You know, talk me through I guess the story there.
Yeah, like to without going too far down the rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
pretty tumultuous kind of childhood in certain aspects. Like I have hands down without any competition the world's best mom. Like she is just like incredible, but had her struggles, right? Like, you know, went through depression, went through some really difficult times, which growing up is kind of difficult to kind of be around. But she was just like unstoppable. You know, my mum has been married 3 times, had a real rough trot. My dad and mum split up when I was very young. So my dad was in the SAS, and that's just a different breed. Like it's different to being in the army. No disrespect to the army, the navy, whatever, but the SAS, like it's just oil and water.
Mm,
The things that these boys are expected to do, that they're trained for, etc. You can't. It's like the Navy SEALs, right? You can't then expect them to come back into civilized society and operate the same way that all other human beings do. Just it's not possible. You know, they're away from home. You know, collectively 10 months out of the year, 11 months out of the year. They can't talk about where they're going, where they've been, what's happened. That little group, I met a lot of my dad's friends only after he passed away suddenly in 2017. And you realize very quickly that that is just a tight knit group. Like they understand each other. There's just a real camaraderie within that group. So for me, I grew up, you know, raised by my mum. My mum was always just in kind of office administration, you know, held down jobs, worked really hard. My dad, for a long period of time, I didn't have my dad in my life. My mum remarried. That didn't go so well. So it was just like up and down, up and down. Reconnected with my dad when I was about 18 and started to have some like really good conversations with him. We formed like a friendship rather than a parenthood relationship. It was too late for that. But I've mentioned this previously. My dad was a genuine superhero. Like I was not the coolest Toppin by a long, long shot. Like he was just such a cool dude, like had the best stories. Obviously, you know, many, many years past the army days, you know, there was some incredible things that they could kind of talk about later on that they were involved with. Told this story about I met up with him when I was in Thailand with a few of the boys, and I was super embarrassed. I was like, damn, like, sorry, boys. Like, my dad said he wants to meet us here. And I just felt I had never had a dad in my life, so I didn't know what that would be like. Anyway, he came and the boys just fell in love with him immediately. Like, when he rocked up, it was like just, he was moving in slow motion. There was like the orchestra playing in the background. It was very, very surreal. And he went for a run one morning. We were all quite hungover, hanging out by the pool. And he came back like drenched in sweat, and he just had a quick chat to us, and he was like, he literally then took his shirt off, and he's got a scarf, like his Adam's apple to like his navel,
mm,
covered in tattoos and whatever. And the boys were just like, he just like turned around and dived in the pool. A bit of a mic drop moment, but he was just, yeah, an incredible human being, passed away very, very quickly. And the reason why I kind of harp on about that is because I think that males that grow up without males in their lives have to really learn a few, like how to be a man type of lessons the hard way, make some mistakes and go through all of that. So bit of a tumultuous kind of childhood, but, you know, luckily I had my granddad in my life for the most part. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was very attracted to sports and competition as an only child. Like I became very, very close friends with, very close to my friends. They became like my brothers, my siblings, etc. So yeah, formed a real like attraction to competing. And it's not about beating people. Like I think people get competition wrong. If you're focused on the other person based on like beating them, you've got a ceiling, right? Whereas your competition is actually a mirror. It shows you where your strengths and areas of opportunity are, and then how to get better. And that's how I view competition. So yeah, played a lot of sport, went through, my mum wanted me to focus on academics, and get my education behind me. I was quite good at school, although I had no interest in following academia. And so, yeah, probably it takes us up to about year 12, give or take, in the journey. Left school, had no clue what I wanted to do. I was working at Boost Juice. That was my first job. Best job in the world, by the way, especially around that period of time. Like that was at like Boost's peak. So you knew everyone, had a really good network, and I kind of started to learn some skills in that job that I still reflect on. Like I was blessed to work with a manager. Her name was Winnie, and I learned a lot from her, both good and bad. She was very transparent. The owner of the store, Richard, and his wife, Amanda, I learned a lot from them as well. But that's probably where my sussing the world out like really began, was working at Boost. I'll pause
Thank
there.
you, mate. Yeah, I appreciate it. And look, and I want to call back to what you said there. Like, I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your dad. I'm not, I'm glad that you got to reconnect with him, even though it was later in life, because same scenario for me, mate. Like, I've only spoke to my dad for the past 3 years, and I'm 29 now. So, I understand what it's like going through life without him. And it's a weird, yeah, it is a very weird thing growing up as a man without another significant man. You obviously have your granddad, and I had my uncle, and you have people that you can look up to, but like, it's, yeah, but you know what? It puts a bit of strength into you. I think like you do learn to grow up very quickly, and it gives you a good perception on the world. Like there's,
Yeah, I think the predominant pattern that I see in myself reflecting back now, that I feel is likely because of a lack of a male role model in my life, is just that I tend to have to learn things the hard way. Like I need to actually go through the experience. And I feel like that was because I didn't have that growing up, someone that I could ask questions to, what about this and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was a repeating pattern that I saw in my life. Not to say that I'm completely banished of it now, but that's where I really saw that, I had to make all the mistakes. I had to learn the hard way. I had to burn some bridges. I had to do all of those things because I really wasn't used to asking someone else for their advice or learning from them. I was like, well, I've had no one to ask all of these years. I've had to be the man in the house for all of these years. So yeah, I became very self-sufficient, even to this day. Like I'm very, very self-sufficient in everything. I hate people doing things for me. I feel like, I'll be old and decrepit one day. People can do things for me then, but up until now, like don't hand me a cup. I'll pick it up myself. Like I'm very like just do like I want to just do things for myself. So that's but the other flip side of it is growing up raised by a woman. My mum was just, yeah, great for teaching me things that are almost unteachable. I'm very good at reading people. I'm very good at understanding, what frequency people operate on, mainly just through interacting with her. I watched her go through some things, and I learned a lot about people, how they treated her during those periods of time, etc. And I became very perceptive. And that's, a skill that, yeah, it's almost unteachable. Like I've been in coaching and development for a very long period of time now. I've been the coach, I've been the coachee, and you can't teach that for the most part. Whereas if it's been shown to you when you're younger, it's generally a skill that you can carry through your personal and professional life for the rest of your years, really.
So Boost Juice was your first job. How long were you working there? Was it a long time?
Yeah, I worked there for a couple of years. I can't recall exactly. It might have been like 3 years. I ended up managing that store, and I was just sussing things out. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that I should probably study something, but I couldn't commit to anything. I was very, distracted, wanted to play sport, wanted to party, do all those kinds of things. And so my granddad was actually a bodybuilding instructor in the UK many, many years ago. And so he was like, why don't you get into fitness? Obviously, it's something you've got a passion for. So became a personal trainer, group instructor, and then the guys that owned the Boost Juice were good friends with the gym owner. So they put me in contact, and I did some work experience with them, and ended up, working at the gym. Did several years, like probably about 5 years, give or take, working as a PT in the gyms, and ended up managing multiple sites in the fitness industry. And that was probably my first taste of coaching as itself, like me coaching other people. I'd always done it in sport. But if you're training people, the physical is only 15 to 20% of your job. Like cracking the mental is 80% of your job. And that, almost by definition is sales, is psychology, is coaching. So really helping to unravel those layers, and why is someone doing something is the tip of the iceberg. The what is the motivations of drivers sit below that. You go back to, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and really kind of dissecting all of those different things and understanding what are the layers that things are running through. So coaching became something that I was interested in there, working in the fitness industry for, roughly 5 years. I didn't want to own a gym, which is kind of, I was managing multiple sites. I didn't really see too much more opportunities. I wanted a new challenge, etc. Left the gyms, took a little bit of time off, and then went and worked for a company that was franchising Telstra stores, so Vita Group. And then that was probably the pivotal career moment for me. So starting in Telstra, so Vita Group franchised the store. So basically, if you walk into a Telstra store, it all looks like Telstra, but it was run by a sales organization called Vita Group. They have now kind of handed back over to Telstra. Telstra predominantly run their own stores now. If you think about, like, that was roughly 2010, call it, give or take, 2010, 2011. Telstra had just made the decision to offshore everything. Basically, all their call centers went overseas. So you can imagine the type of customers that were coming into Telstra stores, people who had already sat on the phone for multiple hours with, somebody from another country, and the frustrations there. Australians are not big fans of that as a process. And coming into the store frustrated. So I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about conflict management, and I worked with some incredible salespeople as well. I really honed my sales skills in that environment. I owe a lot to that. But Vita Group's largest strength was their culture. They just created this incredible, fun, high performance culture. It wasn't a cult, don't get me wrong, it wasn't that far gone, but it was good fun. And I really learnt so much from that. They put me through several leadership courses internally, which I thrived in. I really, really loved that environment, being able to understand human psychology, being able to understand sales, customers, how to get the best out of people, building processes, building culture, building missions, visions, etc., etc. And I loved that. That was like, all right, I've unlocked. This is definitely what I'm going to do for a long period of time. So I worked my way up through that organization, ended up running a very, very large store, which is the size of an area in general, and did that until it probably got to the point where I was like it's still in the retail space. So you're on 7 days a week, late night Thursdays, Saturday, Sunday. The phone's always going. There's always things to do. And I just was like, I don't see an exit to this. Like, I'm just going to be doing this for forever. Then we decided to, go move to Sydney. And that's when I started at Stratton Finance. So Stratton was my introduction to finance and broking, which I probably didn't even know how to spell at that point. Like, I was just completely new to the concept. The story of my journey really is how fortunate I've had to have incredible people on the journey with me. Like, I walked into that business and the culture was like high performance, loud, boisterous salespeople that were just like, bullying is the wrong word, but they were just so aggressive in their sales with their customers, and customers loved them for it. There were several people that are still in the industry that, have matured and have grown. The way that they would interact, I was in awe of these guys. And my first 6 months just sucked. Honestly, you couldn't have picked a worse broker, because I was trying to be them. I was seeing what success looked like within Stratton, and I was like, all right, that's how I have to be. That's what I've got to do. I couldn't do it. I was just no good at it at all. Luckily, I don't know, I still to this day don't know why they kept me after my probation, but they did. And it probably wasn't until about 5 months in that I was like, the one thing that these guys can't do better than me is be me. I can't be them and they can't be me. And as soon as that penny dropped, I was like, all right, I can just be more authentic with customers. Customers resonated with me. I probably built up some knowledge by that point. I really got my head around the game, understood, what does it look like, how to structure a deal, and, what does a credit analyst look like? And I started to think like a credit analyst. And that way my customers were getting a high quality broker. And I was presenting deals, and I was just like getting approvals left, right, and center. And that's when it all kind of clicked into place for me. But yeah, I had Sam Roby and Tom Armstrong were on either side of me when I first started. So Sam is he's doing very, very well. Armstrong is working his way up through plenty, both incredible people. I had Luke Saleh, who's yeah, Gun, Ben Baysari, Brennan Zadrovic. Like I had so many like really cool like people around me that helped me on my journey who, to be honest, I owe a lot to, because I definitely wouldn't, be as far along as I am now without them. That was in Sydney. Did yeah, we went through a really rough time. Obviously, Royal Commission, Stratton changed the way that they were remunerating brokers. We basically gutted the whole team, started from scratch. I realized there was an opportunity then for me to step up. So became sales leader for Stratton. We were able to, sorry, in New South Wales, was able to rebuild that into a behemoth. Like we did really, really well. We're breaking records left, right, and center. Again, working for some like, yeah, awesome people like Jason Diab, Steph, Will Callis, like Simon Garleb, Cheston Laporte. Like there was just, I got like a list of guys that I got, the pleasure of working around. And then, yeah, got the opportunity to move to Melbourne, took over the Melbourne team, which was walking into an established, very well established team, which has got its challenges in itself, to really kind of evolve the culture moving forward. I had my challenges with that. I made, a lot of mistakes, got a lot of things right as well, but I learned a lot from there, and then was with Stratton until September last year. After the obviously Pepper buyout of Stratton, they brought in someone to kind of run that. And we probably just saw the world differently, the way that the business needed to go. So I took a redundancy from Stratton September in 2024, and that's when I went out on my own.
And then at some point during that path, you met me, and then your life sort of changed a little bit. Is that how it went?
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't quite got up to that part. Yeah, that was the real come to Jesus moment, really.
That's what they call me. British Jesus. But yeah, mate, like I want to, before we get into the Topping Group and the coaching business, like I know that you're very, very passionate about sport, as we talked about one sport in particular, which is basketball. And it's fair to say Kobe is your favorite. You can see him behind you. Obviously, I know you take a lot from Jordan and his high performance as well, right? But there's stuff off the court, that mindset stuff. How do you embed that in the coaching, and how have you kind of took that through your career?
Yeah, there's so many lessons. Like the journey of an athlete really, like art imitates life, right? So athletes go against, they've got a specific goal. There's levels that they have to go through to get to the next level. You've got to achieve these certain things. You've got to dedicate yourself. You've got to sacrifice things. You've got to train. You've got to get multiple things in place. It's not just your physical, the diet, the running, the exercise, the muscles. It's your sleep and your supplementation and your recovery. And there's so many things that kind of go around it. And I really look up to people who dedicate themselves to achieve that level of greatness. Maybe is legendary for his work ethic, for the work that goes in behind the scenes to then be able to show up on the big stage. Steph Curry is another one. It's like, this was a narrative that was written that, this guy was not going to be, he's 6'3", which in the NBA is very, he's quite small, scrawny, had no ankles, like was just constantly injured and, all these kinds of things. But the work that goes in behind the scenes is what attracts me to athletes in general. Basketball just happens to be that's just my go-to, but soccer, cricket, volleyball, tennis, squash, like the works. I played them all, but it is the dedication to the craft, and you can translate into anything, right? If you really want, the grass isn't greener elsewhere; it's greener where you water it, right? And so, if you've got a goal, if you've got something you want to achieve, you have to be able to dedicate yourself and put in the work and learn from others and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail before you're able to succeed. You have to earn that success. It's not going to come on your first attempt. You're not going to be good on your first go. It's the same as creating content. It's the same as building a business. It's the same as sport. Your first attempt, you are going to suck. Chances are, right? But then you get that tiny bit better and you get that dopamine hit when you realize you're a little bit better, and then you go again, and then you train, you do some other things, and then you fail and you fall backwards and you move forward. So I work that into a lot of, whether it's coaching or whether it's like, construct a business or interact with people, and also teamwork. That's the other theme that comes good. Every leader has a different ethos. You look at Jordan, there was a lot of talk about him being a tyrant and, he's yell and scream at people and, punch Steve Kerr and all the rest of it, right? But he was a get on my level type of leader. And okay, you may have your issues with it, but you can't argue with the result, and you can't argue with the fact that all of his team members forced themselves to get better. You look at a leader like Steph, he tries to, lead by example, brings other people. Kobe was a very kind of similar get on my level type of leader, but you can decide what type of leader you want to be by looking at these and taking elements of it. I like this and I don't like that, and how can I emulate that? So yeah, sporting analogies are just rampant with me, unfortunately. So if you've ever been coached by me or be around me, I've definitely used multiple sporting analogies on you, and I apologize.
Yeah.
I don't really.
No, it's one of them. And I think for me, soccer's always my number one sport, right? Real football. Basketball's always been number two. But I always think basketball is a much better calling card as a device to kind of pull that high performance culture, because soccer's got 11 people on the pitch. Basketball's got 5, right? Do you know what I mean? And one person can really be that difference. Yet, same they can in soccer, but there's just so much more connect with basketball. In soccer, Roy Keane is probably, I think, the best leader that has ever been, at least in my club, because of the way he did it. Like, he was very much the same as Jordan, which is like get on my level type, pulling people up, kicking off with people, screaming at people, fighting with people, but like setting the standards. We don't what we do in training is what we do on the pitch. If you don't leave training aching, ill, hating it, like, you don't deserve to play on the pitch. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, and that was something that, most of us watched The Last Dance, and, even Jordan said, if you can't handle what I'm putting you through, how are you going to handle our opponents? Like, you're on my team. There's obviously a level there. Another opposition team member doesn't care about your feelings or your back's hurting or whatever. Like, if you can't handle what I'm putting you through, you're going to crumble when we get there. And we have to get through them to get where we want to go. So the mentality of it is that, you should definitely not be trying anything on game day that you haven't gone through in training. And so training should be incredibly difficult. And that's a business lesson if you've ever seen one, right? Like, you've got to understand that the real world is harsh and no one's going to hand you anything. You have to earn it every step of the way, which means you're going to have to make some mistakes. You're going to have to go through some hard times. You're going to have to, tighten the belt strings every now and then. And there's so many things that you need to learn before you can achieve success, whatever that version means to you.
Everyone's trying to be a cleaner, but not everyone can be a cleaner, you know? You know
Well,
the
it's
reference?
relentless. I wasn't expecting that from you. That's good.
Mate, I've got a very good mentor, a very good coach who's like, you need to read this, 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 and this. And I started reading that book, man, and I was like, shit, I don't think I'm ready for this yet. And I ended up going back to it 6 months later. Because it was calling me out on a lot of stuff that I was probably, making promises to myself that I weren't keeping. And I looked at this book and I was like, yeah, I don't need this right now. I accept that this is going to take me to the next level, but then I started rereading it again. But mate, so let's pivot to you starting your own thing. Like, was that always in the back of your mind, even before you knew the package was coming and what was happening? Like, did you always have you obviously always had a passion for doing it, of course, but was the plan there? Was the roadmap there?
My goal was always to be the head of Stratton, right? That was something and it wasn't about the title. It's about giving back to a brand that had given me so much. And I was really indebted to that brand and that business. And I wanted to be the one to help make the decisions that needed to be made to transition the brand into a new era. For whatever reason, that didn't eventuate, and I had always been questioned through the whole journey, like, why are you not working for yourself? Why don't you go and do this for yourself? Why, blah, blah, because that was my goal. Like, I was so singularly focused on that as a goal. And when that wasn't an opportunity anymore, it was immediate. I knew straight away what I was going to do. The only hesitation that I had was, do I go and do broking myself? Do I go and actually start, to begin with an asset finance brokerage? What put me off the idea is I didn't like the narrative that I left Stratton and then I started my own. And there's a high likelihood, and I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't want to sound like I'm bigging myself up here. There's a high likelihood that a lot of brokers from Stratton would have come across. If I had started something and things were going well, then I really disliked the narrative that I left Stratton, and then I was one of the reasons why Stratton kind of started to fall apart, because I started to take all their brokers, right? I really didn't like that, because despite me not being there anymore, I still felt a level of loyalty to the brand. I didn't want to damage that brand by taking brokers, by making them go through, the whole process of recruiting and training and upskilling and all that kind of stuff. Like it didn't sit well with me. And so that was my only hesitation. Once I had come to terms with, okay, I'm not going to do my own broking business. I had been mentoring people that had left the business for years. Like once they had left, they would ask me questions and what about this? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. So I always knew that that was kind of something that I could do. And I pivoted to that immediately. My overall legacy, when I kind of look back at my life, I want it to be that I made a positive impact, that I left the world in a better place than when I found it. And so I was really attracted and really drawn to things that are going to impact people, environments, etc., positively. When you put that out there, it's funny how the universe works and what opportunity it kind of throws at you. I was very, very fortunate that like Julian from Loan Options and I have got a great relationship, as I'm sure he does with everybody in the industry. But we kind of knew that we wanted to work together on some things. We just didn't know what they were for a while. And so I did some work with them. I was lucky enough to kind of get to know their team really, really well. And I'm still very connected to that business and that team. And I have a lot of loyalty and debt and gratitude to all of the people within the organization. But the reason why that's important is because who you're around makes a massive difference, right? They encourage you, they inspire you to do good in the world, etc. And then when I was working with them and I was working with some other clients, etc., I realized that I wanted to do something that was bigger than just building a business and all that kind of stuff. And so when I started to make steps towards that, opportunities came up that, I've taken, and I'm continuing to help in the background with a lot of charitable stuff and a lot of things that will leave a positive mark eventually. And that's kind of how the evolved ecosystem opportunity came about as well. So that's probably the journey from, I don't know, September 2024 up until maybe March or April 2025.
I'm going to ask you this question because I've obviously reached out to you in the past a few times just for advice, and I've always said, like, I like the way you handle things, I like the way you do business, and I think the reason why I've been so receptive to it is probably because there's a bit of similarity in our upbringing and that journey. Like, do you think being raised by a single mum, it's give you a completely different outlook when it comes to a more empathetic, just an empathetic outlook on the way you coach people and the way you approach certain things? Like, it's not ruthless, it's very, do you know what I mean?
There's no doubt that females are much better than males at specific things, right? And empathy is probably top of that list. So to be around that and to be raised in that, loving environment, I say that my mum is the best mum in the world, and that she, despite the challenges, the struggles, there was no lack of love. Like even at times when I didn't want it, like males, we go through, 13 to 17, maybe even up to 25, where, we want to be these macho, go to the gym and be, these big boys and whatever. It's like a mother's love will crack through all of that. And I think that like love is the root emotion of empathy, right? You need to have a level of love, and that was huge for me. So absolutely, like the way that I was raised, my mom, my grandmother had a huge part of my upbringing as well, has definitely shaped the way that your level of EQ. So yeah, a resounding yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to pivot there because it just kind of popped up in my head. But you touched on the evolved broker ecosystem. That was my original next question. Was like, I know you've got some other stuff in the pipeline that I know a lot about. Like, is this stuff you can talk about? You've mentioned the name. Is there stuff you can talk about? Yeah.
Yeah. So I can almost draw a straight line to all of the success that I've had post leaving Stratton. I could almost directly draw a straight line back to Julian. So Julian at Loan Options has like impacted the success that I've had dramatically. And one of the examples of that is I did a podcast with Julian while I was still at Stratton. This was years ago, obviously. And we just similar to this, right? We're just chatting, and we were just talking about the system, the way the world works, and I have a real issue with the education system. I think it's set up incorrectly. We haven't changed the way we're educating children in the last 100 years or whatever. For the most part, why are we not going into, why are we not teaching EQ? Why are we not teaching communication skills? Why are we not teaching about credit files and credit and breaking debt cycles, generational debt cycles, and blockers that people have in their head about money, and how do they get ahead, and what is success? Or why are we not teaching any of these things? And then like the exam process, like how is it fair on a child to put them in a silent room for 2 hours with somebody looking over their shoulder? And we've, as adults, we've said to this child, this next 2 hours is going to dictate the rest of your life. If you do well, you can be a success. If you don't do well, you're going to be a failure. Like, that's child abuse in my view.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we were just chatting about some stuff, and Victor Lagos who is an eternally curious being, right? He's constantly wanting to learn and like make a positive impact. He ended up watching that podcast and reached out to me, and that's how that relationship, that journey is started. Victor is one of those people who will change the world, right? Time and effort is going to be required, but he is so dedicated to elevating the consciousness of the planet. And that sounds very esoteric when it's really just, changing the way things are done. And so that's how our connection started. And for the first few months, like we would just talk for hours and hours and hours, about all kinds of things. And we ended up, working on this evolved ecosystem, which is, his brainchild, his vision. I've just been blessed enough to kind of come in to be able to help with it. In its shortest version, the evolved broker CRM is designed to help mortgage brokers elevate themselves into trusted tech-enabled advisors. Advisors is a word that, in inverted commas, we might need to interact with that slightly differently, just for language reasons. But you need to be obsessed with the customer experience. Every business needs to be like obsessed with the customer experience. And the broker space has got, like, let's all admit it, like it's got a lot of areas of opportunity to provide higher levels of quality service. There's some conflicts of interest that we all just kind of accept that are there and whatever. This will really help to provide a higher level of broker by providing customers a better experience, brokers more information at their fingertips. They can really help guide customers on their property buying journey. Because we often forget, like, mortgage broker is such a terrible term. Like, no, there's nothing sexy about finance. Like, no one comes excited about their loan. You just become a reminder that you're paying a mortgage for the next 30 years. What you're actually doing is helping them with property, and the property is often a means to a specific end, whether that's to an area to raise your family, and it's your forever home. It's an investment, so you can unlock generational wealth, or you can provide a great life for your family. You can take that money and spend more time in doing your passion projects, or you take that money and go and donate it, or whatever the end goal for you is. That's actually what mortgage brokers are helping customers with. And we often forget that. We get tied up in the interest rates and inflation data and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So the evolved broker will be a higher level of service to customers. It will be a much easier broker experience for brokers. And the thing that you're seeing at the moment in our industry, and you would see this probably more than anyone, is some consolidation happening. There's some very big moves being made, which is quite worrying for small to medium-sized brokers because, in my view, the reason why the consolidation is happening is resources for tech, because tech is very expensive. We're constantly getting it rammed down our throats. AI and automation and tech is going to be the future. And if you not able to keep up, you'll be left behind. Small to medium enterprises are going, I don't have the money to keep up with these big guys. I might as well just sell my book to them and move on, and I'll go and do something else, or, pay off my mortgage or whatever, right? That's terrible for competition in general, right? It's terrible for the economy. It's terrible for small to medium-sized businesses. This is going to allow small to medium-sized businesses to have the same, if not better tech than the big boys have at a fraction of the cost, so they can continue running their business, so they can pass it down to their kids, or have something like it takes the scary capital tech ghost away and allows them to just think more clearly on what's really important, which is providing a high level of service to the customers. Funnily enough, despite the fact that it took me 20 minutes to explain, that's just a very small tip of the iceberg for what this will do. There's some social impact things that will come off the back of this. There's some really good people who will be given a hand up to then go and do some really great things in the world. And again, I'm just blessed that I've been around people like Victor who have given me an opportunity to use my knowledge and skill set and whatever to kind of forward that mission. I think it's definitely worth giving Nerlep a shout out as well, who's obviously CTO with Loan Options, but he's doing a lot of work for us, helping with this vision as well, and Mandeep at Effie. So yeah, there's some great people that are coming together to really help the industry and help our customers. We shouldn't be a threat to anybody. Just because we're making a CRM, aggregators shouldn't be worried. It's not about that at all. Like, we're genuinely interested in providing a high level of customer service, highest level of brokers that we can, and that's something that we should all be interested in. So collaboration needs to be the word of the future, not competition.
Yeah, it's what we talked about, in the abundance mindset, right? There's genuinely enough out there for everyone. I don't operate on a scarcity mindset, I don't think, but realistically, I'm in a very niche area, right? For a broker in business, every birthed person could potentially be a client somewhere down the track if that falls in line with their financial goals. But when I think about it from the consumer point, right, I don't look at a business and go, wow, they've got 50 people there, this must be a really good business. You judge it off the service that you get, So I think, you've showed me a lot, and I've watched Victor's video that he did for Brokers versus AI. I've probably watched it about 3 times, I think. So that's an hour of my life that I'm absolutely happy that I give up to it. But
We
you've
talk
obviously
about this
shared.
all the time. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to understand it on the first pass, right? There's too many moving parts. There's too many points of impact for you to fully get it. But there should be one or two things that you're like, oh, okay, that's very interesting. And then the next time you go, I pick up a couple more things, etc. It's like a dotted line principle,
Mm-hmm.
right? What you miss on the first pass, you might pick up on the second and the third. So yeah, I'm super excited about what we're going to be able to deliver, and how it's going to help the industry, how it's going to help the Australian public, and the knock-on effect of that as well. There's a lot of hard work still to go in, obviously, but obviously we've got the Podcast Academy that's attached to it, Investor that's attached to it, Broker CRM that's attached to it. So yeah, some really cool things that'll come out that should help a massive amount of people.
Well, we'll be getting it up and running, tested as of next year. So I've heard anyway. I wouldn't know anything about it.
Uh,
Well,
yeah.
mate, yeah, look, I guess with that in mind, right, and I've obviously reached out to you and spoke to you about the coaching business. Like, is that something you're really juggling with at the moment?
You get to a certain point in your life, in your career, wherever you need to make decisions, right? And so when I started my business, I wanted to create something that was going to be impactful, that was going to help a lot of people, and there was probably a level of ego in there as well, right? Like, I want my brand and blah blah blah. The further down this road that we go with the evolved ecosystem, I had to really sit back, and obviously Victor and I have had in-depth conversations. To be honest, I'm not really taking on any clients. I'm not taking on any clients at the moment. So if somebody hit me up and was like, hey, can we work together? I would assess if there's anything that I can do to help them, but I can't really take on any more. Just, that's how passionate about this project that I am, that this needs to have my full attention. I do need to give it, as much as I can possibly give, because if impact is what's important to me, this is a vehicle that's going to help me have that impact. So I'm dedicating my time and my effort into this. I'm still coaching people, I'm still helping people, but the large majority of my mental capacity goes to this ecosystem. Obviously, I've got auto fetch as well with James Peros, my business partner there, which, look, James does everything there. Anyone who's interacted with James, just no one will have a bad word to say about him. He's the best guy, gives probably too good customer service, if I'm honest, goes over and above for every single customer, would never finish a day without returning every text, phone call, email, WhatsApp message, pigeon carried note. Like, he's just a weapon. And again, that's just, testament to the fact that I've just got incredible people around me. So that gets some of my time as well. But James does by far the most heavy lifting there. So to answer your question directly, I'm coaching and I'm mentoring and all that kind of stuff. But the evolved ecosystem, because of the impact that it will have, on the industry, on Australian public, and then what we believe will actually be the world, that's got my full attention at the moment, which is exciting. I don't feel like I've lost anything. I don't feel like I've given anything up for that. I feel like this is what I was supposed to be doing. And it just took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah. No, it's one of them, like, I'll be open and say, like, the time I spent with you and Victor talking through everything, like, has been some of the best times I've had whilst running this business because, my mindset is the same. Like, I do want to try and help out and do more. Like, there's only so much you can do when you're running a recruitment business, you know what I mean? But that's why I'm trying to build things in like uni internships and building out communities where people can come and speak and be vulnerable. Like that's something I'm passionate about. There is that sort of megalomaniac thing in there where you want to fix all the world's problems as well, right? But yeah.
But I think especially with like the experience that you've had like within your family, right? Like there's a level of empathy that you have to the world or to people who are struggling or people who are relying on external crutches to get them through their internal demons.
Hmm.
You want to give back. That's, I think often people become a victim of their circumstances, but you've gone the other way and you're leaning into the fact that what can happen if people aren't vulnerable and don't have outlets, and you've experienced the trauma that's the worst kind of trauma. Your version, and you said there's only so much you can do in a recruitment business, but like realistically, if every person in the world was like, I'm just going to do my 1%, I'm just going to do something. Doesn't matter what area I'm in. It doesn't matter if I'm an employee, I'm unemployed, I'm a business owner, I'm a homeowner. I'm like, it really doesn't matter. If everyone did one thing, the world looks very, very different. So just careful with the language there. I think like
Hmm.
you can't
Yeah.
cap your impact, because I'm doing this. I'm like, no, like just if the dichotomy is doing it or not doing it, just do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. Like, it is still better than not doing it. Your contribution could be the contribution that makes the difference for the next person. So, yeah, definitely, and I know some of the things that you're doing and why you do them, but yeah, definitely keep
Yeah.
going.
That's one thing I've tried to not do is be like very reductionist, right? Like, what do? I place people into jobs. It's like, no, I build trust with people that come and speak to me at a time when they feel like they have no one else to speak to about their opportunities. You know what I mean? Um,
Well, not
it is
only
very
that,
easy.
but like it's almost it's the same principle as what I was discussing around the language of mortgage broker as a title. Like you can't, yeah, like you said, reduce it down to, oh, I'm putting people. No, you're helping Australians pay for their families, the food and the education and a safe environment for people to grow up. I'm talking with somebody at the moment, Claire, who is really on a mission to eradicate human trafficking, and it's wild. Like what she's kind of educated me on is like the level that it occurs even in Australia, right? Which I didn't, like, so ignorant to even think that it wasn't happening here, but obviously it's very in your face in Asian countries, not so much as probably a bit behind the scenes in Australia. But you're providing safe environments, and the knock-on effect is people who are in survival mode or people who are in desperation mode go and do some pretty horrible things, right? So
Hmm.
you're further upstream than that and helping people to not get to that point, and then they then get to buy homes for their families to grow up in. They don't have to worry about moving every time they're renting and blah, all this kind of stuff, right? Like, you're playing your part in a much larger ecosystem. And I know what you're like. You are obsessed about your customers' experiences as well. So how good was this recruitment process? What can I do better? What can blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, because you care about every stakeholder, the person who's recruiting in, the person who's being interviewed, the overall impact. And yeah, goes back to the athlete's journey. Like, you have to be obsessed with your craft and constantly looking to get better, because that's how you can have genuine impact.
Mate, I think we'll wrap it up there. I just want to say thank you for coming on here. It's been a good one. It's been an emotional one. I'm not going to lie. When you were talking about your mum and her being the best one, I was like, Jesus, man, like holding back the tears there. But, look, I've really enjoyed building a relationship with you, mate, and I continue to look forward to doing it. More importantly than that, I really can't wait to see what happens with the Evolve ecosystem because, yeah, there's some really massive things happening there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for not only having me on, but obviously we do a little bit of work together, you know, behind the scenes and that kind of stuff. So you're doing some awesome things, mate. And if we can keep helping you, we're more than happy to do that. So yeah, thank you
We
for your
try.
time and for everything that you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you, mate.
So actually,
Speak soon.
quickly, no, wait,
Yes.
wait, wait, wait. I really like this. Why I like this podcast is because in our industry, we see the LinkedIn post and we see the photo and we see the type up and all that kind of stuff. And you don't actually get to spend a lot of time with the different people around the industry. And this is where podcasts are so powerful because you get to pull back the hood a little bit. You get to see who someone is and what their journey was and all that kind of stuff. And when I
Hmm.
listen and I watch through your podcast, I get to know different people in the industry on a different level. And, you know, everyone here and there has, you know, their podcast appearance or whatever. But I think what you've done is pulling, you know, a really good group of people together and getting them to tell their stories, etc., is helping us with this collaboration mindset that I think our industry is really going to need over the next 3 to 5 years. So yeah, I wanted to give you your flowers as well for, you know, putting yourself out there to do this podcast and putting people on to kind of share their stories in specifically in our industry. I think it is very, very important. So yeah, I wanted to give you that knowledge.
Thank you, mate. It's one of them, man. Reality and story connects people. You connect with somebody if they've been through the same thing as you. But, you know, a mortgage broker's not going to put on their website. Growing up, I grew up with a single mum and my dad wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, you don't put that on your website because anyone who grew up in a traditional home is going to look at it and go, why are they doing that? But, you know what I mean? But this is a good opportunity for people to share, like, the realities of their reality and how they've come through some weird adversity sometimes, and it's helped them to kind of shape who they are. So no, I appreciate you calling that
Yeah,
out.
keep it up.
That was never the intention, really. It was always just to have people come on and share what's led them, you know, what their first job was like and what they're now doing now. But over time, it's naturally evolved into like, you know, yeah, the bigger picture.
Yeah, you got to tell the story, right? The journey, like the journey is the destination. So, yeah, it's important for us to kind of all understand where we're all coming from and those kinds of things. And yeah, like I appreciate getting to know people on that level. So, yeah, keep it up.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your story as well, mate. We'll chat soon. All right.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.